I have never seen the deep state this panicked, this defensive, and this hysterical. They're going down. They know they're going down. They only know how to play offense. They don't know how to play defense, and it's falling apart.
Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a returning guest, Dr. David Janda. Dave has his Operation Freedom radio show. You can find him on YouTube, Operation Freedom, or go to his site, davejanda.com. Dave, welcome back to the X22 Report Spotlight.
Dave, thanks for having me back on your platform. It's always a pleasure and an honor.
Hey, thanks for being back here. And people don't know this, but we had this incredible conversation before we even went on air, and we should have been recording that.
I think it would. Well, that's very nice. You say it was incredible. I think it might have upset a lot of people, but boy, we sure had a fun time.
Yeah, maybe it would have. I don't know. Maybe we can mention some of it as we go along here. But before we get to that point and the conversation we were having, let's start off with McCabe. I mean, McCabe is making the rounds right now, and he's on 60 Minutes. He's on this new show talking about what he did, and a lot of his stories are conflicting. They don't make sense. Why do you think McCabe is out there doing this? Did they push him out there to take the heat off of other people, or what is the reason he's out there?
I think he's out there because he is panicked and he's desperate, because I believe he realizes that he's been cut off from the deep state, and he's going to be one of the, quote, sacrificial, I hate to call this guy a lamb, but sacrificial puppets, let's call them sacrificial puppets. I believe he is out there because he is desperate and panicked, because he knows that there is a imminent indictment, which is going to be forthcoming on his actions that he admitted to in the 60 Minutes interview when I listened to it, of essentially a sedition in trying to remove a duly elected president of the United States, that president being Donald J. Trump.
You know, it's very funny. I mean, since he's out there doing these interviews, to me, and this is my personal opinion, it seems like they're trying to make it like he was working alone, and, you know, maybe Comey was with him, and that's it. That's where it stops. He just decided to do this.
Exactly. So we know that the bought off lamestream fake media, the major networks, are owned or tentacle of the globalist syndicate. And I believe you're right. I believe they're trying to use their tentacle, the bought off lamestream fake media, as a means of spinning a narrative to the public before this indictment hits, that when the indictment hits, everybody goes, wow, yeah, okay, he's the guy. As opposed to, there was a large group of players that ultimately, if you followed the breadcrumbs back, Dave, I believe would lead back to the Oval Office when Barack Obama inhabited it.
Yeah, I agree.
And see, I believe they're really trying to protect their upper level puppets by putting McCabe out there to take the hit, and Comey might get something. I still believe Brennan's going to take it. The other day, we just saw Clapper now all of a sudden saying, well, I don't know if that Mueller thing is going to really show much at all. What? I mean, this is right. I mean, let's rewind back to a month ago or 2 months ago when Clapper was out there saying, oh, it's going to be devastating. It's going to bring down the president. Now, all of a sudden, he's saying, well, I don't think this Mueller thing is going to show much. What they're trying to do is that they're rats, and they're deserting the ship because the SS deep state has pulled away from a lot of these players, and now they're turning on each other, and they're all trying to protect themselves. And they see and they realize that McCabe is the guy who's going to take the initial hit here. And the deep state is trying to make it so that once that hide is provided, that being McCabe, that people won't say, okay, well, we got that. That'll settle these MAGA people down. And well, they got their scalp, McCabe. So let's just move on. Oh, no. We can't move on, Dave, because this was a concerted effort by an entire network of individuals going, as I said, all the way back to the Oval Office with Barack Obama to remove a duly elected president of the United States. And remember, Dave, that Lisa Page text to Strzok, there was a text in there that the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, Michael Horowitz, uncovered in the past. Many people believe Horowitz is a deep state player. I don't buy that. I think he's playing on our team, on the Freedom Team. But there was a text that says, quote, "The White House wants to direct this," end quote. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's the White House wants to direct this. And then there's evidence that in the presidential daily briefings, the PDBs, that Obama was being apprised on a daily basis of what was happening with this, if you will, framing of candidate Trump, president-elect Trump, and all the way to the day he left office. Because there's documentation at the end of December, right before President Trump, right before the end of the year, right before he was inaugurated, that Obama was in the White House, Obama's White House was providing information to players in Congress about how the Trump administration or the Trump campaign was linked with Russia. So it didn't stop with the FISA abuse in October of 2016. It continued all the way until the day Barack Obama left office.
I think this goes all the way up to Obama's administration, like you said. And I think the spying is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I think it goes all the way up to Obama's administration with Uranium One, emails, the Clinton email server, and everything else. This whole thing that, we're all looking at and all the different pieces, it's all under the same umbrella, and they're all responsible for it. And I think they're very nervous. And one thing that you said that Clapper was out there saying that the Mueller report was not really going to show much. Well, I think we kind of knew that it wasn't going to show much. And it looks like the mainstream media is out there and they're projecting out there that, the Mueller is going to be, that report's going to be a letdown. It's not that big of a deal. And I also noticed another thing, that these deep state operatives, they're trying to change like the meanings of words, or like, oh, I really didn't leak information. I was really exposing it. That was from Schiff. And then we find out that, McCabe, well, it wasn't really spying on the president. So it seems like they're trying to shift everything because they know these words are going to be coming out, leaking, spying, and everything else.
Well, Dave, go back to the early 90s with Bill Clinton when he was in trouble, right? They're taking a page out of his playbook. Remember, well, it depends on what the definition of is. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how crazy these people get when they get cornered. They start coming out with, you're right, redefining terms, and it's all a ploy to try to remove the spotlight of truth and trying to undermine what should be a very much black and white rule of law. And their goal is to create as much gray is possible in order to try to diffuse the possibility of them being prosecuted. I mean, Dave, the Mueller investigation up until a couple weeks ago, I mean, they couldn't shut up about it on MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, Washington Post, even some Shep Smith on Fox and a number of these other players on Fox, how it was going to bring down even Judge Napolitano. Not sure what happened to the judge. Makes me think somebody got to the judge the way he's been acting in the past couple months. But there's been this focus that this investigation was going to take down the president and his administration. And as you said, from the very get-go, you and the listeners to your platform, the listeners to my platform at DaveJanda.com have known that no, the Mueller investigation is not going to do that. Because it goes back to a text that Strzok sent to Page, I believe it was in May of 2017, about the same time McCabe was appointing, they were appointing Mueller. and the text was, quote, when they were referring to the Russian collusion issue, there's no there there. The direct quote, there's no there there. That's what was in the text.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So all these zealots that are lined up on the globalist side and the deep state side, the evidence has been there for many months. And it's as plain as day. And frankly, Dave, if you look at the Mueller investigation, ever since the Mueller investigation started, yes, there are several players that got caught in process crimes that occurred after the election, after the president was in office, right? So General Flynn, who I believe is an innocent man, was charged with lying to the FBI, even though the director of the FBI at the time said, we don't think he lied. And the guys who interviewed him said, we don't think he lied. Okay, well, that's for another day to talk about. We have Roger Stone, who is being prosecuted for lying to Congress. Interesting. Brennan can lie. Clapper can lie to Congress. Brennan can lie to Congress. Hillary Clinton can lie to Congress, just to name a few. And hey, have a good day for them, right? Again, yep. The dichotomy in the rule of law. But we have this dichotomy in the rule of law that folks have caught on to, but in our movement and in our platforms. But, Dave, we have a situation where we have known that the Mueller investigation was going to go nowhere because, quote, there's no there there. But since he has come in with his investigation, we have had the most number of Department of Justice, FBI officials either fired, resigned, reassigned, or under investigation than we ever have in our country's history. So although there's been a couple people that have been found guilty, I think Papadopoulos was found guilty of lying to the FBI, right? He got a whopping 2 weeks in jail. He's now out. So there are several people that Mueller's investigative team that supposedly was the dream team of the deep state legal minds, they got a couple people on process crimes, but in the process, but also there are all these huge deep state players. At the highest level, the director of the FBI, Comey, the assistant, McCabe, Bruce Orr, number 4 in charge at the Department of Justice under Obama. And I don't think that's completely played out on Bruce Orr, but all these high-level players have come down. So really, another way to look at this is the Mueller investigation has done more to destroy the deep state and taking out their players at a high level in the Department of Justice and the FBI than they did taking down pro-Trump people.
Also, Rod Rosenstein, he's going to be leaving sometime in March also.
Right. And remember now, so Rosenstein is kind of the enigma within an enigma, as far as I concern. There's certain things here about Rosenstein that are a question, right? So he was the guy who wrote the memo to lead to Comey being fired, correct? Well, that was a good thing. Okay. The president, who I believe is an incredibly brilliant man, he invited Rod Rosenstein to fly with him on Air Force One down to Florida, right? Well, we know Air Force One is a SCIF, right? A sensitive compartmented information facility where you can have conversations and nobody can surveil it. Well, you wonder what they talked about, right? There's the recent Jewish holiday celebration at the White House, and President Trump is thanking the crowd for being there, and he specifically thanks Rod Rosenstein for all that he has done. I found that odd, right? And what I also found odd, Dave, and you and I have talked about this, and a lot of folks don't want to go near it, but the day before Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel in May of 2017, President Trump met with Robert Mueller and Rod Rosenstein for 4 hours. Now, Robert Mueller had already been the FBI director, and he could not be appointed again FBI director, yet supposedly that meeting was about maybe Robert Mueller being appointed FBI director. No. You see, Donald Trump meeting with somebody, two people, for 4 hours is huge in my mind. And the reason why I say that is because my dad was in the construction industry in Chicago. He built big buildings in Chicago. And 30 some years ago, he had interactions with Donald Trump. And my mom at the time was not a fan of Donald Trump. She thought he was a bit egotistical. And she said, oh, why are you going to meet with him? And, well, no, we got projects ongoing and we're going to. And he came back from those meetings and sang the praises of Donald Trump. I can still remember him talking to my mom saying, you know, he's very different in private than he is in public. He's a very quiet guy. He listens. And this is my dad said. My dad was tough on judging people as far as doing business. He said, I deliberately told him things that he needed to hear, but he, I'm sure, didn't want to know. Or he needed to know, but he didn't want to hear. Excuse me. He said, there are many people that when they're in that situation of hearing something that they didn't particularly want to hear, will pull away. He goes, he became more engaged. He wanted more information in that regard. Because if it was a problem, he wanted to be able to address it early rather than late. And he said the people he surrounded himself with in the business world, he felt were honest, as he felt Trump was, not President Trump at that point, Donald Trump was. And he thought that Donald Trump, and my dad was really tough on people in the construction industry. He thought Donald Trump was an honorable guy, an honest guy, a hardworking guy, and a really smart guy, and a guy who had no problems putting boots on and getting his, my dad used to say, feet wet and getting around a site, a construction site, and seeing what was going on. So I think we have a president here who, for him, and my dad also said, when you have a meeting with Donald Trump, you can accomplish more in a half hour than you can with most people in a meeting for hours. Okay? For Donald Trump to meet with Mueller the day before he was appointed, with Rosenstein in the room for 4 hours again, to me, that was a big red letter day for me, in a sense that keep that one. Don't put that on the back of the stove. Keep that one up front based on my dad's interaction with him. Okay. And I believe that one of the reasons that the bought off mainstream fake media is now realizing that meeting had significant ramifications, because now they're all shocked and awed that Mueller's not going to come up with anything. And frankly, Dave, I believe Donald Trump knew that in May of 2017 at that meeting the day before Mueller was appointed. And I question what's going on with Rosenstein, because remember, McCabe, who is a serial liar under oath, that's why the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz filed recommended charges against him, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
He lied under oath a number of times. So if he lies under oath, why wouldn't he lie if he's talking to Scott Pelley with 60 Minutes or on the Today Show when he's not under oath? There's nothing that guy says that I can take as the truth. Now, maybe I'm being a bad guy by saying that, but I don't trust anything he says. Now, could it be the person who's saying that Rod Rosenstein said, I want to wear a wire to to document that we can get the president on the 25th Amendment charges, that he's not of sound mind. Did Rosenstein really say that, or is McCabe finally realized that Rosenstein has actually been playing on Trump's team, and that's the reason why he's having meetings at Air Force One in a skiff with the president? Could it be that in a sense Rosenstein to a point? And that doesn't mean these guys are all black hats or white hats. A lot of these guys, I think, play with gray hats, and that's probably, they try to put their toe in the globalist water and put their toe into the freedom movement run by Trump. But I question the story that McCabe has come forward and some of these other players have come forward, because they are all been cut off by the deep state and they're all trying to save themselves. And what I think they're trying to potentially do is discredit Rosenstein because he might be one of the people that testifies against them.
No, it could be. And I mean, all these players, they're all rats. I mean, they're all going to try to protect themselves, and they know if they get out of line, they will be killed. And if they squeal on someone else that's a higher up, they will be killed. And I think that when we go back to that meeting with Mueller and Rosenstein, I'm wondering if that meeting was about Trump telling them, I know what you've done. Mueller was involved in the uranium one, and Rosenstein, he might have had something else on him, and he might have been using information as leverage to push them in a certain direction, saying, listen, if you don't do this, I will reveal all of this and you will go down. So maybe Mueller was working both sides, trying to keep the deep state happy, trying to keep Trump happy. Rosenstein, he was doing the same thing, playing both sides because they're gray hats. And when everything is all said and done, we have no Russian collusion. And I don't think there was ever Russian collusion. The Senate came out saying there was no Russian collusion. The House came out with no Russian, and that was Devin Nunes and his investigation. I'm not talking about the new Adam Schiff and Nadler investigation that they're going to look at Trump's socks, his shoes, everything. It's ridiculous.
A colonoscopy would be a good day for the president with this around, right? Yeah. Agree with you, Dave. See, I think Mueller. I believe Mueller was flipped, at least partially at that meeting. I think it was a conversation when, hey, Bob, I understand that, you when you were FBI director, you took uranium samples to Moscow. What was all that about? Bob? Did those happen to be samples in the uranium one deal that, Hillary got $145 million for her foundation? Was that what that was about, Bob? Because if it was, whoa, we got a problem, Bob. I actually think that's probably how the tone of the meeting went.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I agree with you, Dave. I do.
Now we have the new Attorney General, William Barr. He's ordered Mueller to end the investigation. He says, all right, enough's enough.
And reportedly, the document's going to be turned over to the new Attorney General Barr. And Dave, we should address this. There are many people that have problems with William Barr. Actually, I'm one of those people in a sense that if you look at his track record, he was Attorney General for a short period of time under George H.W. Bush, a known globalist. Right. He was potentially involved in a fair amount of nefarious activities. But look, I go back to my dad and his interactions with Trump 30 years ago. And if Donald Trump was like that 30 some years ago with my dad, he's only gotten better in 30. You don't slide backwards in your abilities, right? He's only gotten better. And my dad said he was top of his game back then, but he's only gotten better. So folks are saying, well, Barr is part of the deep state. Well, I do think Barr obviously had ties to the deep state. But again, I believe so did Mueller, so did Rosie, and that doesn't mean that they're still there. I think Trump utilizes information because I believe he has the best intelligence, and I'm not just talking intelligence from government sources. I believe he has his own private intelligence service that he utilizes and has utilized throughout his career that has been incredibly effective and put him people laugh at people when they talk about 4D chess. Well, the 4D chess in my mind with Donald Trump is he has such a vast intelligence network that puts him so far ahead of what's happening that it gives him such a huge advantage. So I think he played that game with Mueller. And I think now we're starting to see the ramifications of that game he played with Mueller 2 years ago come to fruition. I think the same thing with Barr. I think he probably utilized some of the things Barr was involved with George H.W. Bush. And we know H.W. Bush was involved in a lot of nefarious activities. I think he probably utilized that to take Barr from a black hat to maybe a light gray to off-white hat. And I don't think Barr is in there to pander to the deep state. Now, I'm sure people will find huge problems with that last statement, but I don't think the president would have put him there if there was any doubt in his mind that Barr was going to play a black hat role.
I agree with you. I think Trump, when he uses not just him, but those people behind him, the strategies that he puts forth, it seems sometimes that they're confusing. They don't make sense. And I do believe that he has certain people in different positions because he needs them there. And I'll just bring it back to North Korea. A lot of people in the very beginning saw Trump, crazy. He's tweeting out, I got a big nuclear button. He called, Kim Jong-un, fat boy. I mean, he was called, Rocket Man. I mean, he just kept on making up names and stuff like that. And everyone thought we were going to war. That was part of his strategy to keep everyone busy while the real work happened behind the scenes, where he was negotiating peace, a plan. I think the same thing is happening now. Barr, yes. He's in there because Trump knows he's going to follow the rule of law.
Yep.
And he's going to follow through on this. Barr, he's older now. And basically, you know what? I don't care what happens. I'm following the rule of law and we're going to go and move forward with this. And I think this whole thing has been set up. And a lot of people, and even myself sometimes, I'm like, what is he doing? But I think there's always something else behind the scenes that you can't see just yet that he's maneuvering around. Remember, we don't know all the roadblocks. We don't know what he has to deal with.
Yes.
And that's why I think a lot of it seems confusing at times. But later on, you go, oh, I see now. Because then you go back in time and you see what was happening and it all makes sense.
So, and add a little bit to that, if you don't mind, Dave, on that North Korea deal. When he was inaugurated in January of 2017, right after that, it started kicking up, like you said, about, we're going to war, Rocket Man, Fat Man, all this kind of stuff. And I got in touch with people I know within the military, high level, and that I've known for years. And I said, you boys getting a little revved up here. What's going to, doesn't look like, it looks like. And here's what I was told, Dave. Dave, he's had the president right after he was inaugurated, very soon, within several weeks after he was inaugurated, he had a team negotiating with the North Koreans about peace. Okay. And it plays to exactly what you said, Dave, that the front thing was Rocket Man, Fat Man, I got a bigger button than you do, and MSNBC and Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper going stark raving crazy that he's getting us into a nuclear war. But the truth of the matter is, according to the people that I've known for years that I trust that are military, and we're saying, Dave, there's not going to be a war. He's got a team over there talking to him.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it with the Mueller investigation. Now, as we said, 2 years ago, he closed that deal, Dave. He closed that deal 2 years ago of what was that's just going to be coming out now. But for 2 years, all you've heard about from Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper and all these other dweebs, now Judge Napolitano evenly the past 3-4 months, it's all is terrible and it's going to take down the president and his entire administration. No.
I think he needed the 2 years. I think he wanted Mueller to continually do what he was doing. I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, he's going to fire him and get rid of him. And that is a no. And, and I thought, and when I think back now, the 2 years, and you said this just before, think about within the 2 years, how many people were let go, resigned. So he removed
all deep state players,
exactly.
Deep state players, right?
And the question is, why did he need the 2 years to remove all these people? It removes the protection of Clinton. It removes people that will stop him in the future, because he needed to do this to get everything ready for trials, for arrests.
And Dave, not only they were removed, but without a peep from the bought off lamestream fake media. Okay, let's take this to a degree. Let's say, because why they didn't make a peep? Because Mueller was really going to be the guy to bring Trump down. So the fact that Mueller, by exposing, and the Department of Justice, Michael Horowitz, by exposing these text messages and all this other stuff, well, Horowitz came into being when Obama was president, and Mueller, he's fighting on our team. He's anti-Trump. Meanwhile, all these 26 highest level players in the FBI and Department of Justice have come crashing down. Imagine if at the time, let's say he would have appointed somebody, or the person appointed to the special counsel was some incredibly pro-Trump person. Let's say, off the charts, I understand, but let's say Ivanka, okay? Ivanka is special counsel, right? And all these deep state players are falling down. The cry, the screaming from the bought off lamestream fake media would have been huge, right? But because Mueller was there, because he's anti-Trump, and because, Sessions, who's incompetent, so that's fine. And all these players came down, and the bought off lamestream fake media didn't say a peep about it being biased, bringing them down. It was brilliant.
It was.
I mean, truly, and that's not hopium. It truly, if you look at this analytically, it was the most incredible psyops that has been perpetrated on the deep state, I think, ever.
Okay, so we have Mueller now that he's supposed to give this report. How soon do you think this report will be released to Barr? Well,
the other day they came out and they said, we think it's going to be released sometime in the next week or two. And according to the people I know, they think it's imminent. And and many people say, well, when Barr gets it, because he what's he going to do with it? Well, I think what Barr's going to do with it, he's not obligated to turn it over to Congress. He's not. And he's not obligated to turn it over to the public. Okay. It's in the possession of the Attorney General. I do believe what he's going to do, because it's going to be, it's not going to be the smoking gun against the Trump administration, and actually might have some other evidence against some other players that are deep state players. So remember, gray hat, right? I think he's going to give parts of it. The whole enchilada, maybe, but at a minimum, a big chunk of it to Congress. Say, here you go, folks. Try that on for size, which I think is going to make Adam Schiff Schiff is going to pick out a couple things and start focusing on that. That's really doesn't matter. But the biggest part of it, I believe, is going to be absolutely nothing. And I think some of it will get released to the public, but the part that's released to the public, I believe, is going to show that it exonerates Donald Trump candidate, Donald Trump president-elect, Donald Trump president in any means possible as not having colluded with Russia, period.
Once this comes out, do you think the mainstream media, they're going to spin this in a completely different way?
Well, they're going to look for some other thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever this happens, they get real jumpy and they start focusing on something else to try to make the freedom movement, Donald Trump, the MAGA community look look tough. And right now they got some problems because they got this Smollett guy that now is that's now evident that the Chicago Police Department have now arrested him and have filed charges against him. The prosecutors have, so that whole narrative of MAGA supporters, Donald Trump causing racism and racist behavior and violence. That took one in the short. That whole narrative took one in the shorts in the past, couple days. So they're going to try to find something to focus on rather than, and they're already discounting the Mueller report, right? They're already saying, well, it wasn't just Clapper. It's Adam Schiff actually said, well, I don't know if it's really going to show much. That way we have to enhance our investigations of the president and the House. Well, I think when the Mueller report comes out, I think it's going to exonerate the president to the point where if they keep going down that road, they're building even more seeds to their own destruction if they keep focusing on that. So they're going to try to find something else to pick on. And this is where we have to be careful, if you will, because a card the deep state can play is the financial system, right? So when all else fails, because the deep state over many years has rigged the system with such huge debt that you've been very articulate at speaking about, they've riddled it with such huge debt that they know they could always try to pull that card to cause some financial instability as the topic that they focus on, and that they try to blame it on President Trump when in fact it's as President Trump has been pointing out for months, it's the Fed, another tentacle of the globalist syndicate.
It's interesting that you said that they might distract or there might be some type of an event. Just the other day, I mentioned this on my report, that an interview that I did 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago with Steve Lenman, the title was False Flags in Many Cities. Mm-hmm. Well, it came out that they restricted it. Now, they did this prior to different shooting false flags to like Sandy Hook and things like that. They restricted those videos before the actual event happened. So this happened about a week and a half ago. And now we have Attorney General William Barr ordering Mueller to put out this report. And the mainstream media doesn't want to report on this. And this kind of makes me a little bit nervous because why would they go back 4 years ago and remove that video?
That's very odd, isn't it?
Yes, it is very odd. And it makes me think that something is going on right now, that either something's planned to where something might happen and it might distract everyone in the news cycle.
And Dave, we've also seen a number of cities having drills, military drills, Salt Lake City, Los Angeles. There was one recently in Washington, D.C. There's been one in New York. So a number of different cities have had these military drills that have been, I would consider them very, intricate. Black Hawk helicopters, teams on the ground. I also believe that there are times these drills, like for example in the LA area, from folks I've spoken to, there was a drill in Long Beach. And the media, the lamestream media actually reported on that drill. It was between February 4th and February 9th of 2019. Mm-hmm. But there were two other operations going on while everybody was looking at what the right hand was doing with these drills in Long Beach. There was also some activity on Wilshire Boulevard with Black Hawk helicopters and Little Bird helicopters coming in and teams going after. And I know you touched on the Guatemalan Cultural Center and teams coming out with what appeared to be some kind of boxes of something. And I was also told at the same time that was going on, there was also an operation occurring, a takedown operation in Compton, California. So again, and what I believe, Dave, is from the information I have is that one of the reasons the declassification that the president asked for on September 17th, 2018 of the FISA documents with Carter Page, the text between McCabe and Comey, along with more texts between Strzok and Page, and the Bruce Orr 302 forms that were filled out when they interviewed him. One of the reasons why that declassification has been slow walked is because when Sessions started slow walking that, it gave the deep state some time to set up some counter moves. When the declassification occurs, it's going to be big. The information that comes out, it's going to really start to melt the deep state ball of wax significantly. And when that happens, the concern has been the deep state will launch a counter attack, a counter offensive. That being, as you mentioned, a false flag operation. It's my understanding that what President Trump has been doing is, and his team has been trying to neutralize that counteroffensive. And it could be that these drills that we're seeing, that's a drill, but there's also a component that's an operational, an actual operation to, if you will, remove some of the deep state counterattack that occurs when the declassification occurs. And I've been told the declassification will occur when, and Donald Trump holds all the cards on that. He's the guy who decides. He's the guy who can order it overnight. The declassification will occur once those countermeasures have all been taken into effect and the deep state is blocked on their counterattack.
You can see how they are definitely just planning something. And it doesn't, for some reason, when I hear Mueller report, declassification, I always think that the deep state is ready to make a move. And I know that Trump and, like you were saying, the Patriots, and they're planning on countermeasures to maybe stop this. They know what's going on, but we know that something is going to definitely happen. Or actually they're going to try to do something to change the news cycle.
And I think their easiest target, Dave, is the financial system. As I said, the deep state has had that rigged for a number of decades. And it's rigged because, and you've outlined this before, the amount of debt, DEBT, that our country and the world is in. We have only gotten worse since 2008, not better when it comes to debt and derivatives.
That is true. This is a central bank illusionary economy, which they created a very long time ago. And actually, since 2008, they were able to take full control of the entire system. Stock market, the derivatives, precious metals, you name it, they have full control over everything. But I just wanted to touch upon the national emergency that Trump declared with the wall. And I know the deep state, the Dems, they were blocking him at every turn, and they finally admitted, okay, we'll give you 1.37. He signed the bill. He declared a national emergency. He's being sued now in the Ninth Circuit. I think there's like 6 states.
That's shocking, isn't it?
It's what?
That's shocking.
Yeah, well, he laid it out. He goes, I'm going to be sued in the Ninth Circuit, then it's going to move to this, and he laid out the whole thing. But, I mean, we know in the end, he's going to win in the Supreme Court.
Right.
And the wall is being built.
Right. No, Dave, a couple things. I have to say, when right after his press conference in the Rose Garden on that Friday, I don't know about you, but my email box it blew up. I received hundreds of emails of people who have been supportive of the president, MAGA supporters, saying this is wrong, this is bad, this is terrible for the movement. It's terrible for on the illegal immigration front. It's a loss. It's horrible. Well, we got to let the dust settle. So a couple things. There's 2 sides to this, Dave, briefly. There's the money side, and then there's the logistics and policy side and process side, if you will. Look, on the money side, he won. President Trump won. Huge, right? He got his money. He got money out of him. He has more money from the 2018 bill, like $1.7 billion. He outlined where he was going to get more money from the Department of Defense and Treasury Department and the like. And when you add it all up, it's close to $9.7, almost $10 billion worth of money to build the wall. And frankly, Ann Coulter is so wrong on this, where she talks about the walls that won't get built. Come on, the wall's they've been building it for months. I mean, there's independent videographers, Dave, they're out there and they've shown Hey, they're out there. You don't see a CNN camera crew because they're too busy at Roger Stone's place at 6 a.m. to watch the El Chapo SWAT team come in and take him down. But they're not filming the construction guys on the border building the wall around El Paso. Where the president just, I think, posted some a video in New Mexico of the wall. I mean, the walls they've been building it. It's not just in the future, it's in the past, and it's currently, and it will continue in the future based on the money side win he had with the bill. And I believe the national emergency, it was fantastic because it filled the void, because Congress did not give him the amount of money, and because they didn't give him, that national emergency was declared to fill that void. And I agree with you 110%, no matter what, when it all comes down to the Supreme Court. And frankly, I don't know, I would think you could ask for an expedited verdict in front of the Supreme Court and just say, hey, forget with this Ninth Circuit thing and forget with, because there's something about if there's a national security, you can go right to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court will rule in the country's favor, and that means it will rule in the favor of Donald Trump. Now, on the process side, Dave, the logistics side, I'm concerned about that side, and many people believe that concern is unjustified. But it's not just me, it's a large number of people, and I don't mean Ann Coulter. Take Ann Coulter out of this. She's wrong and she's off. My main concern is there were a number of poison pills in this. And many people have said, well, because the president, after this was signed, and because he declared a national emergency, the national emergency negates the bill that was signed. That's not true. And the reason why I say that, I've talked to former congressmen, House policy chairmen from Congress. I've talked to immigration attorneys, INS officials, Mike Cutler, one of my regular guests on my show, 30-year veteran in the INS. I've spoken to Sidney Powell, who's actually going to be on my Sunday radio show coming up to speak about this. One of the best litigators in the country. Helen Chapman, one of the top litigators in the country, brought down Bernie Madoff. And we also got in touch with the counsel of the House Judiciary Committee. And here's what they all say. The national emergency declaration does not negate the bill that was signed. And then people say, well, okay, but there was a signing statement that occurred afterwards, and there was. And this was on the whitehouse.gov site. It's a 3-page document. It was signed the same day the bill was passed, and it's a signing statement. Okay. This was started by Ronald Reagan. Remember, Reagan lost the line item veto. He tried to push for the line, didn't get it. So the signing statement, everybody's taking it as, not everybody, a lot of people are taking it as a line item veto. No. The president, this is a kind of a CYA kind of letter where the president goes, okay, well, I signed the bill, but these are the sections I don't like, and I don't like, and I'm not going to enforce. Well, what the lawyers tell me, what the judges tell me, what the INS officials tell me, because they've been through this before in '86 when Reagan did the amnesty thing, is that a signing statement does not negate the legislation. Okay? It's a preference of the president as it relates to the executive branch, but the law still goes into effect. The legislation still goes into effect. The way to undermine, if you will, or block the legislation is for the president to issue an executive order. And many people say, well, he did that. No, he did not. Not yet, anyway. I hope he will. I'm sure he will, but he hasn't yet, because I went to the Federal Register. The lawyers went to the Federal Register, and the last executive order that was put forward by the president was February 14th, 2019. It was about artificial intelligence. It had nothing to do with immigration. The one section of the bill that is troublesome is section 224. And the reason is because it opens up the possibility that the human trafficking situation, of which the president has been the strongest advocate for children in my lifetime. He has pummeled human trafficking. He has gone to the mat for human trafficking. Well, the Dems, when they wrote this, and by the way, there are a number of Republicans that sat on that committee that kind of was the bipartisan committee. They said, hey, there was all this stuff written and we didn't know about it. And then they gave us an hour to look at it before it was released. I still think that they're to blame, the Congress, because that's how we got in this mess. Congress, right? The Republicrats, the one political party, not two political parties, Dave. As I've said, there's one political party and they're owned and operated by the syndicate. Some people have R after their name, some people have D after their name. They're all the same. They're all globalists. But what they said is, what the legal people said and the judges said, if the president would come out with an executive order on this section 224, because 224 actually can widen the human trafficking, can make that worse. And an executive order on 224 can shut that door. And the hope is that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, 224 was not in the signing statement by the president. Now, many people have accused me of being negative about the president on this. I'm not. I just told you he won on the wall. He won on the funding. The point is that I believe the president has some people around him, and many people despise me for saying this, but it has to be said. Hardest thing I did as a physician, Dave, was to walk in a room and tell a patient that their lab tests or their scans showed that there was something bad going on, right? I could walk in that room and lie to a patient, and they'd walk out of the room with a smile on their face, and by me lying to them, they're dead in a box in 6 months. And the harder thing to do is to go in and tell that patient, ma'am or sir, this shouldn't have happened to you. Here are the results. Now, there's two results when you give people bad news. They either tell you you're full of it, and they walk out of that room, and those are not the survivors, Dave. The people that survive look at you, and while you're crying and they're crying about the diagnosis, they look at you and they say, okay, I didn't deserve this. This shouldn't have happened. What do we do? What do we do? Dave, every person through my 32 years of being a physician, every person that had that attitude was destined to be a survivor. The people that ignored the information and walked out, no. And the people that were lied to, they weren't survivors either. And what I'm saying is I want Donald Trump to be the most effective president in our country's history. And in many respects, he already has been. But I'm concerned, and this is the bad diagnosis part, because I believe he was not advised by a number of people, not all of them, but some of them around him. And the people that I believe were not straight with him were his acting chief of staff, Mulvaney. And I also think Kellyanne Conway and Mercedes Schlapp, based on the information I have, based on some interactions that occurred coming into the decision on the immigration bill, I believe those are three of the players, but not all of them, but three of the prime players that did not provide him the information that he needed to make a decision as it relates to a lot of these logistic issues. And that's not being critical of the president. I'm not saying he doesn't understand the people around him. I'm just saying that based on what I've been told and what I have seen, that there are people around him. And the silver lining in this cloud, Dave, is that it's better to find out now about those people than it is a year down the line when he's running for re-election and they do something where they undermine him again.
Remember in the beginning of the interview, we discussed that Trump, his plan and what he does is not always what it seems. Yep. And he's a smart man. And I can't believe that, he didn't know about this. And sometimes I think he does things to see how people react and what they'll do and what side they're on. And I agree with you. There are certain things in the bill that I questioned. And I think what he's trying to do, and this is what I think is happening, I think he wants the wall up first. I think he's already being sued. There's, multiple states already suing him. We already had a shutdown. We're approaching another shutdown. And I think he just wants to say, okay, let's take this one step at a time and let's build the wall. Let's get this up. Let's get, every level of protection installed after this. And then later on, to wipe that out, I just sign an executive order and it's gone. I mean,
and you know what, Dave? It could be he also wanted to smoke out the people around him to find out.
I agree with you.
Who was playing ball for freedom, and who behind the scenes is really going to undermine him down the line. And I think Ann Coulter played her hand. I think that. Pure guesswork here, but based on what I saw and how she acted, I think there's somebody buttering her bread financially, and that became very apparent on her reaction. I'm also, and I'll put it on the line here. I from the information I have, there's an entity that I think is trying to undermine him that could well be trying to influence people in the West Wing of the White House. And that entity is the Koch brothers, and in particular on the immigration issue. The Koch brothers are for open borders. They see it as a financial issue. The more low-wage people they can get in, the more money that can be made. People like Pelosi look at it like, hey, the more of these people we get in, the better the demographics for us, the better way we can, if you will, let's influence, read Steele, an election. There are a number of Republicans that are pushed by the Chamber of Commerce who've been very supportive of open borders because, again, it's cheap labor. The people I'm most concerned about that have a lot of money that I believe are trying to influence a number of people, both in the public sphere, but also in the government, in Congress. I'm worried that they have some influence within the West Wing based on relationships, financial relationships, are the Koch brothers. I think they have decided that they have, and they've been actually kind of upfront about it, that they have no appreciation for Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, or freedom.
There is always individuals within government, and we know since Trump came into office, I don't think he's Republican, I don't think he's Democrat, I think he's fighting both sides.
I agree.
And we know that the deep state is wide and deep. And yes, there are many, many individuals within the White House and throughout Congress that are completely against him. And I think that one of the ways he smokes these people out is he pushes certain agendas and see how they react. Because what better way to see who is with you and who is against you? And you can see from the number of people that have been fired, resigned, that this process actually works. And this might have been a strategy to see, okay, I know I have these people close to me. I know these people are working with me, but do I really know these individuals, what they're up to? Let's see how they react to this. And he saw firsthand what they did, how they react, what they're doing. And then I think once that is out, they follow up, okay, who influenced these people? And like you said, they probably went back to the Koch brothers. And, from your information, this is probably where it all comes from. And I think there's a lot going on. And I don't think that, within the White House and within Congress, there are still people that are still trying to get rid of him or trying to mess him up at every turn.
And he realizes that.
Oh, absolutely.
Dave, I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, toward the middle when we started talking about the border issue, that my email box was clogged up at the beginning with hundreds of emails of people saying that it's over, blah, blah, blah. I tried to respond to a number of those folks saying, no, it's not over. There's a win on this wall. There's some issues with the bill, but, it can be worked through. Then when I put my YouTube out a couple days ago about the bill, and I again mentioned there was a win here, but there was actually a bit of a loss here when it comes to the logistics side and this Section 224. A lot of people came down on me for not being supportive of the president, and nothing could be further from the truth. But here's the interesting statement. I did get an email from someone who is a household name who was integral in Donald Trump winning the presidency. And this person said to me, Dave, they had watched the video, the YouTube video that I put out a couple days ago that I got really lambasted for from a number of different MAGA supporters. But this is a person who is very close to the president and had a huge role in him winning. This person said, Dave, we watched the video and thank you. Thank you for focusing people on what needed to be focused upon, and thank you for your honesty. And I think people need to realize that, the one thing the deep state wants, this is a war, Dave. It's a war.
Yes, it is.
And the immigration issue was a battle. And we had a couple battles, and we won one huge on the wall side, the money side. I think we had a little bit of a loss on the logistics side, but I think it's a temporary one because I do think he's going to come through with an executive order. The signing statement doesn't cut it. I think he's going to come through with an executive order. But the point is that the only way we win the war is not running away and saying, "Oh, I'm so disappointed. I'm tuning out. I'm not going to, somebody who goes AWOL, I've never heard will win a war." And the only way we win a war is pushing forward, knowing full well that we can agree and disagree on a number of things, but we're all in it to defeat our enemy. And our enemy is the deep state that wants to strip every American of their freedom and liberty. And I believe one of the reasons the way the bill was created the way it was to fractionate the MAGA movement, to have people run away, to dissipate the ranks so that the deep state could live another day. And it's my hope that a number of these folks that have decided to tune out and run away come back. And because the more of us there are, the stronger we are, and the sooner we can defeat the deep state. But for those of us that are left, that are saying, hey, we got a little problem here, that doesn't mean that we're being disloyal to the movement. It means we're trying to point out a problem so that problem doesn't get bigger and bigger and lead to us having a huge defeat at an enormous battle.
One thing you said is that they might have put this in there to divide the MAGA movement. And that is the strategy of the deep state, to keep people divided, to keep people fighting amongst each other. Because if they can do that, which they've done in the past, and they're still trying to do, they keep all eyes off of them, and they have us fighting.
Let's face it, Dave. Dave, that divide and conquer business model has worked phenomenally well for them for over 100 years.
Yes, it has. But it's coming to an end.
It is.
Yeah.
I really believe, and a lot of people are going to come down on me now for saying that's hopium and that's not the case. Dave, I've been dealing with Washington issues since 1988, coming up on 31 years. I have never seen the deep state this panicked, this defensive, and this hysterical. They're going down. They know they're going down. They only know how to play offense. They don't know how to play defense. And it's falling apart.
Dave, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
Well, they can join us every Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern, for the radio show. Great guests. We were having Sidney Powell, as I mentioned earlier, great a lawyer to talk about some of the legal issues on this week. 2 to 5 Eastern on Sunday. It's a live show. They go to DaveJanda.com, hit the upper right-hand corner where they hit the listen button. They can listen for free. We also have the YouTube channel, Operation Freedom. DaveJanda.com has a lot of content on it. There's a free side, a public side. There's a subscription side, 30 cents a day, about $9 a month. Folks can sign up for a month. If they don't like it, get rid of it. But on the premium service subscription side, we have a show, our WTF geopolitical show, where I bring information from my sources I've developed over 30 years to forefront in a video show on Wednesdays. We have a Thursday Insider Insight interview show. This coming Thursday, I have two whistleblowers, former signal intelligence officer under the Reagan administration, coming forward on Homeland Security and these raids. And their family was raided based on them being supporters, actually against Obama, and how their entire family was raided by the Department of Homeland Security under Obama. They've never come forward. They have now. They're going to be on that show. We have Insights. We have a healthcare policy briefing section, a contributing editor section. We have a number of different shows on the platform and the subscription side. But they can join us for free for the radio show. Plus, the subscribers get the podcast anytime they want. But the show itself live is free, as is the Operation Freedom YouTube channel. And I thank you, Dave, for all that you do with your channels. They truly make a huge difference in empowering people by providing them information that the fake media will never let them come near.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. I really appreciate it and honored to have you on the Spotlight once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.